Good afternoon and welcome to the EVV Provider Refresher Training on Visit Maintenance and Report. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. This is the sound test to ensure everyone can hear. All attendees will be put on mute for today's webinar. To ask a question, you may select the chat option in the webinar box and type your question into the box provided on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. Your instructor and the EVV team will answer as many questions as possible during the time allotted at the end of the webinar. For easier viewing, you may click the Enter Full Screen button in the webinar window to make the presentation larger on your screen. To get back to the window where the chat box displays, hover over the top middle of your screen to see the webinar bar and click View Options, and then click Exit Full Screen. Today's refresher training is to review two key areas of EVV, visit maintenance and reporting. For visit maintenance, we'll review key components of the visit maintenance screen, learn tips for using filters to find visits, and review how to view visit information and resolve exceptions. Then we'll take a look at reports in EVV. We'll review how to run reports, and we'll also review which reports are recommended to find key information. We will start with visit maintenance. When you first log into the EVV portal, visit maintenance will automatically be pulled up for you. Before anything will display in visit maintenance, you will need to select which visits you want to view by setting your filters and clicking search. As a minimum, you would want to use the date range filters to select the date range of visits to view before clicking search. If you just click search without setting any date range filters, you are choosing to only see visits that exist for the current day. For today's training, we're going to use a date range of October 22nd, 2017 to October 27th, 2017, because those are the dates for which we have training data. For this webinar, we are working in an EVV portal that has been designed specifically for training. This means there is a lot of visit information, including exceptions, which we can view. These visits do not contain real client or employee information. It's good to note that anywhere you see the word client in EVV, it is referring to the individual who is receiving services. Here you can see that there are 221 total visits to see according to the filters that I have selected. There are also a lot of red dots on the screen. Some visits only have 1 or 2 red dots, while other visits have several red dots. Each red dot indicates an exception that has occurred for that visit. An exception is generated when there is a piece of required information that was not captured for the visit. To review required visit information includes the client who received the service, the employee who provided the service, what service was provided, the date of the visit, the start and end times of the visit, where the visit was provided, client verification of the service that was provided, and client verification of the date and time that the service was provided. You will see that these visits are in an incomplete status because there are exceptions that exist for them. A visit can only reach a status of verified when all its exceptions have been resolved. Claims that are submitted to ODM should only be for verified visits. I'm going to take a few moments to talk about the filters that exist in visit maintenance. A few moments ago, I talked about only changing the date range filters before I clicked search. There were a lot of visits that came up. However, it's key to remember that the information that shows up in a search is defined by all the filters that are available on the screen. You have the ability to search by client name, employee name, category, payer, visit status, client Medicaid ID, or by exceptions versus all visits. If there is no information entered into a field or selected from a dropdown, then the search function will know to include all possible information for that filter. This means that for visit status, as an example, since no particular status was selected for my search, I'm seeing all visits with any possible statuses. This includes visits that are in process, incomplete, verified, processed, or marked as do not bill, which means they should be omitted. The filter visits by filter is set by default to show visits that exist with exceptions and to show all exceptions. So since I did not change this filter, I'm not seeing visits that have been completed and verified. Those visits will not show in visit maintenance until the all visits filter is selected and I click search again. If I select the exception types option, an additional filter will appear to the right. The new exception types filter will allow me to select specific exception types, and my search results will only show visits with those exception types. For example, if I were to select just the unknown client exception type and click search, my results would only be visits that have an existing unknown client exception on them. When you select to see all visits in the filter visits by field, you are choosing to see all possible visits in your selected date range. This includes both visits that have exceptions and those visits which do not have exceptions, or verified visits. When all the results are displayed, you can then click on any heading in the visit display grid to sort visits according to that heading. For example, if you click once on the visit status heading, your visits will sort by alphabetical visit status. If you click visit status again, they'll sort in descending alphabetical order, so that now all your verified visits for the date range will be at the top of the list. It is very helpful to use search filters to find visits. For example, you can narrow your search results to only view verified visits in your selected date range by setting the filter visits by filter to be all visits and the visit status filter to be just verified visits. Setting your search filters this way indicates that you want to see all verified visits only. It is also very helpful to be mindful of the filters you select in case they should cause you to not see information you need. In this example, no data was returned for the search because the filter visits by field is set to show all exceptions, and the visit status field is set to only show verified visits. The two filters contradict each other. A visit cannot be verified if it still has exceptions. So you will not see any verified visits when you have also selected to only see visits with exceptions. The next time you don't think you're seeing information that you should be seeing in visit maintenance, look very carefully at the filters that you have set. You may be excluding certain visits from your search and not realize it. I mentioned that one of the filters you can use is the client filter. You can type a client's first or last name into this filter and click search to just find visits for that client. In this example, I typed my client's last name, Shaw, into the search filter. When I clicked search, 5 visits came up for my client, Lily Shaw. Notice my filter visits by filter still says all exceptions. So the number of visits I see does not include verified visits, but just those that have exceptions. If I want to view more information about one of the visits, I can click anywhere on that visit line. When a visit is clicked, the visit details box will appear. To help you navigate the visit information, there are tabs listed with informational topics along the left-hand side of the box. The General tab is like a quick summary of that visit. It includes the date and time of the visit, the current visit status, whether or not a visit's times have been adjusted, and this is also where you would adjust those times if needed. And you can also see whether or not a client has verified the time and service provided. If the client has provided a signature or voice verification of the visit, you would be able to access it on this General Visit tab. There would be a blue box that looks like a picture icon to click on to view the client signature, or a blue play button to play their voice verification. Notice that this example has "No" listed for the client verified time, client verified service, and client signature, which means client verification was not captured for this visit. The Call Log tab of Visit Details is where you can see the call in and call out information. This includes the date and time of the call, and most importantly, it contains information on how the call was made, whether it was by MVV, the EVV mobile device, telephony, or manual entry. The GPS tab of the visit is where you can see GPS location information for the visit as long as the visit was logged using the mobile device. You'll notice that there are 3 colored map points beneath the map. The black map point represents the client's address, or addresses if you have added more than one into EVV for the client, where visits are expected to commonly start or end. If a call in or call out is logged through the EVV mobile device within 1,000 feet of one of these known addresses, then you will see the green map point on the map for that call in or call out. This will indicate that this call in or call out did not occur outside of an expected location. If a call in or call out is logged through the EVV mobile device at a location that is more than 1,000 feet away from a known client address, then you will see the red map point indicated on the map for that call. A quick note about the GPS exception on visits. A GPS exception might also occur if the satellites that are used to triangulate coordinates for the location cannot get a signal with the device. Based on feedback from providers in the program, if a client's home is located in an area where satellite signals cannot be established with the device on a regular basis, then the provider may see regular GPS exceptions, even though the visit is being logged from an expected location. For this reason, ODM has elected to turn off the GPS exception in EVV starting April 26th. What this means is that moving forward from April 26th, you will no longer see a red exception dot on a visit where the mobile device call in or call out was more than 1,000 feet away from a known client location. Since you will no longer see GPS as an exception, this means that the GPS exception information will no longer show up in the visit exception report. You will still be able to see historical GPS exceptions that have already occurred on visits. And you will also still see GPS information for EVV device call-ins or call-outs in this GPS tab of visits. Speaking of exceptions, there is a tab in the Visit Details screen that is specifically reviewing any existing exceptions on a visit. In the example you see on the screen, there are exceptions for visit verification, client signature, and service verification on this visit. Remember when there was a "No" listed for these items on the General Information tab of the visit? When client or service verifications, or a client signature or voice verification, are not captured for a visit, they will produce exceptions that need to be resolved for the visit, like this. To resolve an exception, you would first check the box to the right of the exception that says, "Acknowledge this exception." This will cause additional boxes to appear on the screen for reason code, resolution code, and reason note. If you click on the reason code field, A drop-down field will display a thorough list of reasons and their corresponding codes to indicate what happened with that exception. There are a lot of reason codes, so that the most circumstances for exceptions can be addressed by selecting a code. If you do not see a reason code that would help explain why an exception occurred, there is a reason code of Other at the bottom of the list, which may be used. In this example, the individual was asleep when the visit ended, so they were unavailable to provide verification. You could choose reason code 34, individual not available. Note that this reason code tells you that there will be additional free text explanation that will be required. The next required field to complete is the resolution code field. The resolution code is asking for how you resolved not being able to capture the required documentation. The only answer that is currently available in the resolution code field is written documentation maintained, because this is the expected method for capturing information that was not captured on a visit in EVV. The final field is reason note. Sometimes this field will have an asterisk, indicating that a free text reason note is required to resolve the exception. This indicates that a free text note is required before you can click Save and resolve the exception. In this example, you can type that the client was sleeping as the reason why they were unavailable to verify the visit. When you click Save, you will see a green success box appear on the window if the exception has been successfully resolved. In this example, there are 2 remaining exceptions to be resolved before the visit can reach a verified status. Notice that there is a Select All checkbox that appears above the Acknowledge this exception area. If the same reason code applies to both of these exceptions, you may click Select All to select both exceptions. Now, when you enter the reason code, which could still be 34, individual not available, you are saying that it applies to both exceptions. After you select the resolution code of written documentation, type in your reason note, and click Save, both exceptions will be resolved. Once all of the exceptions have been resolved, the visit status will change to verified, as shown for this visit at the bottom of the screen. To see a history of the exceptions that existed for a visit, you can click the History tab in the Visit Details screen. This displays how the visits were resolved, when they were resolved, and who resolved them. Client, service, and client signature exceptions are just some of the types of exceptions that you might see on visits. Another type of exception you might see is the unknown client exception. An unknown client exception occurs when one of these 2 things occurs. Number 1, a care worker uses telephony for a call in or call out, and they do not call from a phone number that is associated with the client in EVV. Or number 2, a care worker starts a visit for a client in the EVV mobile device by clicking the unknown client button. When either of these things occur, EVV is not able to match the call in or call out with a client in your EVV account. So the visit will be logged for you in visit maintenance, and you will need to go into the visit and resolve the unknown client exception by selecting which client in your EVV account should be associated with the visit. If the unknown client visit resulted from a care worker clicking the unknown client button in the EVV device, then you should have some information in the Memo tab of Visit Details. After a care worker taps the unknown client button in the EVV device, the next screen gives 4 fields that a care worker can complete to indicate the individual they are providing services to. The care worker can enter the individual's first name, last name, Medicaid ID, or Sandtrax client ID into the device. This information is intended to be a note to the person who will be resolving the unknown client exception, so that they have an idea of which client should be associated with the visit. This information is found in the Memo tab of the visit because it is a note. If the care worker either logged the visit using telephony or they did not enter information into the field, you would not see information in the Unknown Visit Details area of the Memo tab, as seen here. An unknown client exception is an example of an exception that cannot be resolved by just acknowledging the exception and adding a reason for why it occurred. Some exceptions, like the unknown client exception, require you to actually go back and add the information to the visit. So, to add a client to this visit, you can click on the Client tab of Visit Details. There is a note on the Client tab telling you that no client has been assigned to this visit. So instead of seeing a client listed, you have search filters that will help you find the client in your account that you want to associate with this visit. There is even a new checkbox called Include Inactive Clients that will allow you to find and associate a client to this visit who may not have been in your EVV account at the time the visit took place, or who may no longer be an active client for whom you provide services. An example of when this might occur is if you had a client that you started providing services to yesterday, but you have not yet had a chance to get into your EVV account. The care worker would have started an unknown client visit, and today, when you add that client, you would check Include Inactive Clients to ensure you can associate them with a visit prior to when you entered them into the system today. To include inactive clients in your search, you would check the box and then use the filters to indicate the client you are trying to find. For example, you could type Smith in the last name field and check the Include Inactive Clients box. Then click the search icon, which is the spyglass icon to the right of the search field. Any client in your EVV account, active or inactive, with the last name of Smith will come up in your results. If you did not get any results returned, or if you do not see the client you are looking for, go to the data entry section of your account and check your list of clients. The client most likely needs to be added to your account. In this example, the client came up in the search results. To add the client to the visit, select the client by clicking the bubble to the left of the client's name, under the Actions column. You can see in this example that the client John Smith has been selected. The exception resolution fields will appear on the screen to complete. Complete the required exception resolution fields, then click Save. When the client has been successfully added to the visit, you will see the client's contact information listed on the Client tab of Visit Details. You will also see their name show up in the upper left-hand corner of the Visit Details box under Client Name. This will also mean that your unknown client exception has been successfully resolved. An unknown employee exception is another exception that you might see, and it is very similar to the unknown client exception. An unknown employee exception would occur when a care worker logs a visit using telephony and they accidentally enter their Santrax employee ID incorrectly into the phone. The Santrax employee ID is what will identify a care worker in your account to assign to the visit. So if the ID that's entered into the phone does not match up with an employee ID in your account, the employee will be marked as unknown for the visit. If this happens, instead of seeing the care worker's name on the visit, you will see the ID that they entered when they logged the visit in telephony. You would resolve an unknown employee exception much like you would resolve an unknown client exception. You would start on the Employee tab of the Visit Details box. You will notice that this is also a new inactive employee checkbox on this screen, just like there was on the client screen. This means that you can also now search for employees who may not have been active in your EVV account at the time of the visit. Once you type in your employee search criteria, in this case, the last name Acosta was entered, and click the search icon to the right of the search field, you will see a list of employees who match that criteria. To add the employee to the visit, select the employee by clicking the bubble to the left of the employee's name under the Actions column. You can see in this example that the employee John Acosta has been selected. The exception resolution fields will appear on the screen to complete. Complete the required exception resolution fields, then click Save. When the employee has been successfully added to the visit, you will see their contact information listed on the Employee tab of Visit Details. You will also see their name show up in the upper right-hand corner of the Visit Details box under Employee Name. This will also mean that your unknown employee exception has been successfully resolved. Another exception type that you might see is visits without in-calls or visits without out-calls. As a quick reminder, you can always use your visit maintenance search filters to only see visits with selected exception types. In this example, the visit maintenance filters have been set to only show visits with the specific exception types of visits without in or out calls. These types of exceptions will be denoted by the red exception dot that appears either under the call in or call out columns of the visit display grid. These exceptions are two additional examples of exceptions that can only be resolved by adding the missing information to the visit. Since these exception types deal with calls, you would best resolve them by going to the Call Log tab of Visit Details. On the Call Log tab, you will see the existing call information for the visit. This example has a call-in, and I can see when and how that call-in occurred. However, the visit does not have a call-out logged to complete the visit. There is a place on the tab to add a manual call. The first thing to do when adding a manual call is to select the date and time that the call should have taken place. You can do this by clicking on the call date calendar and selecting your call date, and then you would manually adjust the call time field to reflect the correct time. You would manually adjust the call time field because by default, it will reflect the current time in which you are working in the system. The service can also be selected for the call. You can click the service field to get the drop-down menu and click on the appropriate service for the visit. Finally, you must complete the required exception resolution fields. Then click Add to add the call to the visit. When the call has been successfully added to the visit, it will be displayed on the Call Log tab, and the corresponding call exception will be resolved. Here are a few key takeaways from visit maintenance. If you don't think you're seeing visits in visit maintenance, double-check the search filters that you are using. Also, the GPS information will continue to be seen in the GPS tab of visits. However, as of April 26th, the GPS exception will no longer appear as an exception on visits. And finally, you can now add inactive clients or employees to visits when resolving unknown client or unknown employee exceptions. Now we're going to take a look at the reports that you can find in EVV. We know that there is a lot of work that goes into providing care to individuals. For today's training, we've broken out three main areas of work or roles that are included in providing home health services. Your involvement and interest in EVV data may be a little different depending on your role. Care workers, for instance, have an interest in ensuring their visits get logged so that it supports their timesheet and schedule. A scheduler, biller, or administrative person has an interest in ensuring that visits are verified with no exceptions and would be eligible to be placed on a claim. And also, information that care workers may need or ask for is readily available. And finally, a management type person would have an interest in ensuring that the preferred method for verification, which is mobile visit verification via the EVV device, is being used as much as possible. Or in other words, you are complying with the use of EVV according to ODM's program. You would also have an interest in ensuring that work is reduced on the administrative side by ensuring EVV visits are correctly logged and that visits are being verified on an ongoing basis so as not to hold up the billing process. If you are an independent provider, you do all three of these things. You provide care, you take care of your billing and administrative work, and you ensure that you are compliant with regulations. However, if you are an agency provider, these roles are likely filled by multiple people. All providers have access to the same EVV reports. And today's review of reporting is going to focus on answering some of the most common scenarios we've heard brought up in either training or since Go Live, where providers need to find information to support these interests. It will also review how you can use the reporting in EVV to support your own EVV use and workflows. To start off, you'll notice that the screenshot on the screen is showing you that there is a navigation bar that you will see when you log into the EVV portal. In that navigation bar is an area to click on Reports and Exports, and then click Reports to get to the screen where you would run reports. There are two types of reports that may be run, date range and daily. Each type of report also has its own list of reports. For daily reports, if this is the report type that you select, you will see the reports of active clients, active employees, call listing, call summary, and visit verification as options that you may run. If you were to select date range as your report type, you would have an option to run a report of client visit summary, detail visit status, summary visit status, visit log, visit verification activity summary, visit verification exception, and visit claims verification status. Each report has two main categories of parameters or filters to apply to the reports. The first or top red box that you see on your screen is calling out the select time frame set of report parameters. These are the parameters or filters that will allow you to choose the time period for which the report should be run. The second red box on your screen, the select parameters area, is calling out general filters or parameters that may be applied to this report. And they will allow you to target specific areas to specifically filter your results to see a specific item or another. So for example, on the screen, you will see that client is a parameter that you may choose. If you were to enter a specific client into that field and click Run Report, you would only be viewing information for that particular client. Just as a quick reminder, visits will show up in near real time in the visit maintenance screen. This screen eliminates the need to first run a report to see exceptions that may need fixed. Instead, it will display all the information it has for a visit and demonstrate with a red dot where an exception needs addressed for that visit. So when you are doing your day-to-day maintenance of your visit data, visit maintenance is still a good place to look at visits. Let's take a look at date range reports. These reports can be run for up to a 730-day time frame, or in other words, about 2 years. It does not have to be the last 730 days, but rather any 730-day period for which you have been using EVV. Date range reports also focus on summarizing information. Because you can run the report for so long, you would want to make sure information is consolidated and easy to read on the report. And finally, they provide oversight into general system usage, including visits that may be aging, or in other words, may have had exceptions to resolve for a long period of time, most common exceptions occurring, and most common reasons for visit exceptions. For date range reports, we have received a couple system use scenarios. These include, how can I get trended information regarding my most common visit exceptions? And how can I see over time that visits are logged using the recommended EVV method by using the EVV device? Now, agency providers would probably be more interested in the second scenario than non-agency providers, but both types of providers will still have this report, so we'll still review it today. For the first scenario, how can I get trended information regarding my most common visit exceptions? A good answer to this is looking at the Visit Verification Exception Report. This is because key features of this report include separating visits and their exceptions by exception type, so that you can focus on the visits that had a certain type of exception on them. In the example on your screen, you'll notice that the red box on the left-hand side of the report is calling out the exception type filter or area for this report. And it's telling you that all of the visits you would see on this page of the report would have an unmatched client ID or phone exception on them. This report also includes a reason codes column, which is the red box that's called out on the right-hand side of the screen. So if you notice that the majority of your visits with a particular exception type have the same reason code that's being applied, you can look into what that reason code might be. Maybe it is regarding a care worker error or something else that might be going on. By being able to quickly look at the reason codes that apply to visits with a certain exception, you'd be able to quickly spot any patterns that might be occurring in system use. And finally, this report will show the total number of visits with that exception and how many total billed hours had that exception. Another scenario is, how can I see over time that visits are logged using the recommended EVV method by using the EVV device? The answer to this would be the Visit Verification Activity Summary Report. This is because this report provides a quick and clear way to see which visits were logged using the EVV device, telephony, or manual entry. If you look at the red box that's called out in the middle of the report, you'll notice that it is highlighting the start and end columns. This indicates the call in or start column and call out or end column for the visit. Anytime you see that cell phone or device looking icon, it indicates that the call in or call out was used or logged using the EVV mobile device. Anytime you see the telephone icon, it indicates that that call was made using telephony. And if you were to see a notebook piece of paper icon in that column, it would indicate that that call was logged using manual entry. You will also see the reason code column on this report, so that you can investigate if there's a common reason why, let's say, telephony were being used as opposed to the EVV mobile device. There are also some billing questions or scenarios that we have received, and they include, how can I see all verified visits for which ODM is expecting me to submit a bill? Also, how can I see that exceptions are being resolved on a timely basis? And if MIT sends back an error message for a claim, what should I do? Looking at the first scenario, how can I see all the verified visits for which I may submit a claim to ODM? The answer to this lies in the Client Visit Summary Report. A key reason why you would run this report is because it will show a complete list of just verified visits for your selected client or clients. It also shows the total number of visits or hours to be billed by client, as well as showing the total number of visits or hours to bill for all clients selected for that time period. So if you want to get an idea of which visits are eligible to be placed on a claim for a selected time period, you would run your client visit summary report, select your time period, and then just know that if you have selected multiple clients, you will see 1 page of visits per client. The second scenario, how can I see that exceptions are being resolved on a timely basis, would involve the summary visit status report. Key features of this report include the status column that you see on the left-hand side of the report, and then the age heading that you see on the right-hand side of the report. In the status column, you'll see statuses of in process, incomplete, verified, processed, and omitted. The age column includes time frames, such as less than 1 day, 1 to 5 days, 6 to 10 days, and so on. If I were to look at the 1 to 5 day column, you will see that there are 39 visits that are in that incomplete status, which indicates that there are 39 visits that have had exceptions existing on them for 1 to 5 days. As you get further towards the 16 to 31 day time frame, you get an idea for visits who may have been in your system for several days without having exceptions resolved and may need some attention. Another scenario is if MIT sends back a message or error for a claim, what should I do? The answer to this would be the Visits Claims Verification Status Report. This is because key features of this report include displaying a status of each visit in your selected time period, both verified and not verified, and showing the correlating batch information for each visit that has come from MIT. So if you have submitted a claim to MIT, and it includes several visits on it, or even just a single visit, MIT will look to EVV to get a match for that visit, and it will be looking for that visit to be verified. So if you have submitted that visit, but it still has exceptions on it, then you would likely get an error message or a denial back from MIT. Now, if that occurs, MIT is including the batch and transaction information so that it may be displayed in EVV. So you may run this report for your selected time range, and if you have sent that visit in on a claim, see its corresponding batch and transaction information in MIT and what its current status is in EVV. And you know, if you look at the visit status column and it says incomplete, then that's a pretty key indication as to why you would have gotten an error message, because the status of incomplete only exists if there's work that needs to be done with that visit yet by resolving exceptions. An additional billing scenario that we've gotten from some providers is, I want to see my visit information in my billing software. How can I do this? There are several steps involved with addressing this scenario, and the first is to check with your billing software vendor to ensure they can accept uploaded data. Not every billing software may be able to do so, so it's always best to contact them directly and find this out. If they are able to accept uploaded data, you would ask for the format that they are able to accept information in, whether this be Excel, CSV, or a different format. Next, you would check to see what data they can accept. So this would include start and end time of a visit. Would they be separate columns for that start and end time, or the same column for the billing software? So you would want to verify the specific data points that your billing software would be expected. And then you would run your reports in Santrax EVV. Now, depending on what data your billing software vendor would need, you may need to combine data from several reports that you have run from Santrax and combine that information outside of Sandtrax. So for instance, perhaps your billing software vendor needs or could accept data from 2 different reports that you can run in EVV. You would run each report and export that into the appropriate format, and then combine those report files before you upload into your billing software. And your billing software vendor and the EVV provider hotline would be able to answer any questions you might have around that. Next, we'll take a look at daily reports. As the name indicates, you would run a daily report for 1 day's worth of information. Because you're just focusing on a single day, generally, these reports are also more detailed than date range reports. So they allow for a more in-depth investigation of specific client, employee, or visit information. Some caregiver questions or scenarios that we've received, which would be addressed by a daily report, include: where can I get a list of the Sandtrax client IDs that are needed for telephony? How can I tell if a client's address can be found by GPS? And how can I quickly see which visits have been verified by a client? For the first 2 scenarios, where can I get a list of Sandtrax client IDs that are needed for telephony? And how can I tell if a client's address can be found by GPS? You would look to the active clients report. If you notice the left-hand side of the report, the red box is calling out the client ID, Medicaid ID, and client name columns. This is a quick and easy way to see all of the clients that are listed in your account, their corresponding Medicaid IDs, but more importantly, the Sandtrax client ID that they have been assigned. The Sandtrax client ID is important because it is needed in order to log a visit using telephony for a client. If you look to the right-hand side of the report, you'll see latitude, longitude, and address validated columns. Latitude and longitude are associated with the individual's address if that address can be validated by GPS. So that is when you would see coordinates listed. If the address cannot be validated, no latitude or longitude coordinates will be listed, and there will be an N in the address validated column to indicate that no, the address was not validated. The other caregiver scenario is: how can I quickly see which visits have been verified by a client? And the answer here is the visit verification report. Key features of this report include the ability to see the visit specifics of whether or not the client has verified the service, time, or applied their signature to the visit. This helps you know which visits have included client verification and which ones a client may not have provided verification for. So if you were to run this report for a specific client or multiple clients, you would see by client those visits over time, or those visits for a specific day rather, that were able to capture verification from that client. Once you know which visits have verification, you know you can always go back to visit maintenance to either view that client signature or hear the voice recording of verification. Tying it all together, there are several reports available to meet various needs in EVV. The type of report you will run will depend on how detailed you need your information to be and the situation. And if you want to know which report is best to get information for a particular scenario, we're always here to help. Remember that you may also always refer to your training manual to get more information on reports. The ODM website, specifically the EVV initiative page, contains both the agency and non-agency training manuals. The agency training manual includes reporting starting on Chapter 8, and the non-agency training manual will have reporting starting on Chapter 7. You may also always reach out to the EVV provider hotline at 855-805-3505 if you have questions.